All right, so again, welcome everyone to the event. I'm Jason Gumpert from MS Dynamics World. Really pleased to be hosting today's Portals Community Call, our July 2022 event. We are going to be led today, once again, as always, by Microsoft MVP Nicholas Hayduk. Great to have him back. And we have a special guest today, Arpit, who will introduce himself and be talking about build tools. We're really pleased to have him here as well. We do welcome your questions as we go today. Please do look for the questions block, enter them in anytime. Nick and I will both be keeping an eye on that. We're also recording today's event, so if you miss any part of it, we will be sharing that later as well. So I think that's it for me for now. Nick, I'm going to hand things over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, excited to have Arpit with us today. I remember the first time I kind of ran into Arpit was on the forums. I don't know, Arpit, if you slept at all over the years where you answered, like, it seems like every single forum question over on the PowerApps Portals community stuff. You were very dedicated. You had a great blog post as well. So it's really great to have you on the call today.
Thanks a lot, Nicholas. I'm also a great fan of whatever you are doing for the community, and I have gone through your community calls in the past as well, and I think you are doing really great stuff putting on the community, and thanks for doing that. And thanks for having me on your show as well.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to just get through kind of the stuff we typically do here up front. Quick introduction of myself. I'm Nicholas Hayduk, President and Software Engineer with Engineered Code here in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. Still Microsoft MVP, did make the cut on July 1st, so that was nice. I've been working with PowerApps Portals or PowerApps Pages for quite a while now. If you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn or followed on any of the social channels there, please feel free to do so. As always, want to just thank Jason and the whole team at MS Dynamics World for their support of this call that we've been doing for I think 2.5 years now. I think it's been pretty successful. Get lots of good feedback on it, so happy to have their support. In terms, our agenda today is we got today's topic. Oh, I missed the news because I think I copied from last month, but we definitely have some news to go over before we get into today's topic. So let's talk about the news. We've got the 2020 release notes were published, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe beginning second week of July. With regards to Power Pages, kind of the highlights include some usability updates to the Portal Admin Center. So I don't really, I don't know what that's going to be, but I just think that kind of Portal Admin Center that's been there for many, many years since the beginning of the kind of Dynamics 365 Portals days is probably just going to get some love. At some point, maybe we'll see it in some of the other admin centers, maybe in the Power Platform Admin Center, that sort of thing. So that's on the list. The ability to configure basic forms and data grids. If you don't know what data grids are, they are just lists renamed, and lists were entity list renamed. So entity list / data grids. You will be able to configure those within the Design Studio. I think there's some Learn Hub enhancements, so just kind of more documentation and integrating the learning materials within the Design Studio, as well as the templates. So you will, like right now, one of the kind of the limitations of Power Pages is you can't go and install Power Pages and use one of the templates that work with Dynamics. So whether that's customer self-service, employee self-service, community, partner, those ones. So that's what's coming as part of the release notes, is the ability to select those templates when you're turning on a Power Pages site, as well as I think there's a couple more new templates that they're working on. So I do expect that relatively frequently we are going to see templates be added to the gallery of available templates. So happy to see that the dynamic templates will be there, and then even more that they're working on. So that's good to see. Another big one was the file column support. So I actually got some emails from people who noticed that it was there before the documentation was ready, and they were kind of emailing me about some questions about, hey, it's not working the way you'd expect. And I said, well, I didn't even know it was available yet, so there was no documentation to refer to, but that is now in preview. So the file column has support on like things like forms in Liquid and the web API, all that good stuff. So a few months ago we got images, now we have file columns. So I think that that's going to be very, very popular. I know that the document management capabilities with SharePoint, are another option versus kind of doing notes. So I think having another tool in the file upload toolbox is going to be a big win. So yeah, you can go ahead and give that a try in the preview there. And finally, there are some upcoming deprecations. If you haven't read through the article yet, I've got a link here. I'll include the link in the notes when we post it. But yeah, quite a few things here that Microsoft has said will be deprecated in the near future. So with regard to the OAuth 2.0 implicit grant flow, which is essentially the token service that we use when we're building companion apps, there are some changes there. Nothing about it's not like the whole implicit grant flow is deprecated, but they're just kind of limiting the scope of some of the things. I think they're removing some of the endpoints, but and I think they're enforcing some of the certificate stuff. So just making it a little bit more secure and removing some of the features I think were not kind of widely used, because there was some duplicate about whether you call the token endpoint or the authorized endpoint, that sort of thing. So they're just kind of streamlining things there. But just if you are using the OAuth 2.0 implicit grant flow stuff, it's worth taking a look just to make sure that just to see if there's any change you got to make to remain compliant there. They are and data grids. Again, data grids are entity lists or lists. Looks like they're going to be removing the OData feed. Of course, that OData feed was the source of all the headlines. I think it was last year with the quote-unquote data breach. That really wasn't a data breach, but yeah. So there, it looks like they're turning off that functionality. Some of the rationale behind that is now with the web API, you can essentially expose a feed anyways. So it was kind of redundant technology, and so they're kind of picking the new way to do things versus the old way. So, but if you have any functionality that does depend on those OData feeds, again, go through the blog post just to see what kind of dates they've provided, and make a plan to move to whether you want to build your own OData feed with Liquid or whether you want to use the web API. The front side editor. This one kind of makes me sad. This has been in the product for a very, very long time, essentially since the beginning. Yeah, the front side editor, which is essentially those edit buttons that pop up everywhere when you go and log in as an administrator. They're deprecating that. I mean, it really hasn't seen many changes over the last 5 or 6 years. So obviously Microsoft is moving to prioritize development on the Portal Pages Design Studio, the old kind of PowerApps Portals Studio. So that's where they're focusing. So the front side editor, which to be honest uses a lot of kind of old legacy technologies in there. So they've just decided it's no longer kind of worth the effort. I'm not sure how many people use it. I know we used it, a little bit. It's nice to just because we were kind of so used to it, but probably not a ton of usage out there. So that is deprecated as well. The Yahoo Auth provider is deprecated. That's one of the OAuth 2 providers that there was kind of that set list of providers. So Yahoo's kind of falling off that list. I think there were some changes on Yahoo that it just makes more sense to leverage the OpenID Connect version rather than kind of using that old OAuth 2.0 provider. And then the last one here on the list is the Lucene.net search. So I'm not sure if we mentioned this last time, but there is the Dataverse search. So that's using the same search capabilities that you get within a model-driven app. That functionality is now available. I believe it's generally available. So if you want to switch to the new one, you can. And I think that the timing on this one is like April 2023. So you got kind of less than a year to move off of the old one into the new So move off of Lucene.net and into the Dataverse search. Pretty straightforward to move it. It's honestly, it's kind of there's a site setting that you flip to move to the new one. Obviously, if you've done anything kind of super fancy in there, you may want to go through your traditional dev cycle, make sure everything works as you'd expect. But just know that moving, you will have to move away from the Lucene.net search here in the next year or so. All right, so that's what we have for news. I think there was a bit more. There were a lot of things happening over the last 6 weeks since our last call. So I'm sure there's something I've missed there, but those were the highlights. So the release notes, the file column type, and kind of a relatively large list of deprecations, but nothing in there that really scares me in terms of the deprecations. So yeah. All right, moving on. Let's get to the fun topic here, and that is the build tools. So, Arpit, if you want to come online, and we can make you presenter, and you can take it away.
Yep, please go ahead.
Let's see here. I think I can change presenter. All right. Yep.
I just did it.
Perfect.
Can you see my screen?
We can.
Oh, I'm using this go to my webinar first time, so all right.
Yeah, no, we can see your screen perfectly here. I'm just kind of curious as to when you're going to go through all the effort to, call it portal pages.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep,
yes, it looks good.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep, we can see your screen.
All right. So first of all, I would like to thank Jason for hosting this, and Nicholas especially for organizing this community call event. And as I already told you, I'm a great fan of Nicholas, and I think we never interacted in person. But yeah, we met virtually in the Power Community events, and I'm a big fan of all the sessions, all the knowledge sharing content that Nicholas is sharing to the community. And thanks for sharing all the the recent update made by Microsoft in PowerApps portals, all the updates, all the new releases, and all the deprecations. So from last 2-3 weeks, I was also traveling a lot, and I was not aware about what features has Microsoft has deprecated and what Microsoft is releasing. So I think thanks for that for sharing that information, Nicholas. All right, so today we're going to discuss about the PowerApps portal build tools. Okay, so this is just a Visual Studio. It's a Azure DevOps extension that I have created last year, and till now it's around 483 plus downloads already happened, and most of the organizations are already using this tool. So this is the tool that I'm going to discuss it, and it is something that that is used to automate your portal deployment. All right, so I'm going to discuss about the history of the portal deployment, the challenges we had earlier, because I think Nicholas is also have been working in the portal since the ADX Studio was there. So I was also on the same boat. I'm also working. I've been also working when the Microsoft didn't adopt that portal, and it was known as a ADX Studio, right? So we all know what were the challenges in terms of the development and the deployment especially. So, and based on my previous experiences, I've just developed this tool, and I'm going to show you but before the demonstrated that tool, I just wanted to give you a bit fundamental introduction about what is PowerApps portal ALM actually. All right, so before getting into this session, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself first. All right, so my name is Arpit Shrivastava, and I'm a Microsoft MVP, and just 1 month back I got my MVP renewed, so I'm the 2 times Microsoft MVP now. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and currently working in Capgemini Sweden as a Power Platform architect. I'm leading the India Dynamics 365 user group, and I'm the ambassador of Power Community as well. So you can you can watch my videos or my recordings or my sessions on the Power Community. Apart from the Power community, I've been active speakers in other user forums like the Scottish Summit and the D365 classmates and other user groups as well. I've been writing a lot of interesting stuff related to the portals and the Power Platform components, and in the day-to-day in my project activities, if I'm doing anything interesting, I'm just putting it to the blog. So I've been writing blogs since 2014 today. I've been hosting, a lot of events worldwide, and recently been to Brazil and Dubai. So we recently hosted a big event, not recently, but before the COVID happened. So we did a Dubai summit, and I hosted that event. And I've been giving a lot of mentorship programs as well. So if you want to connect with me after these sessions, offline or online, you can just connect me through my social media channels, my blogs, through LinkedIn's. If you watch my previous recordings, my sessions, all the reusable components I have created, you can just watch over my YouTube channel as well. All right. Okay, so if I talk about the agenda, I'm going to discuss about the PowerApps portal ALM first. Okay, so that you will be having a if you are not aware about what is the purpose of the ALM and what is the PowerApps portal ALM looks like. So I'm just going to give you a very brief introduction about the PowerApps portal ALM. Then obviously I'm going to discuss about the PowerApps portal CLI, because the tool or the extension that I have built to automate the portal deployment is basically designed using the PowerApps portal CLI, PowerApps CLI actually. All right. So also I'm going to do a quick demonstration of the portal deployment as well. So this is how the agenda of next half an hour looks like. All right, what is PowerApps portal ALM? So not specifically to the PowerApps portal actually, but if I talk about the ALM, so ALM is basically the application lifecycle management, right? So regardless of any application in this world, regardless on which platform it is being built, or what technology it is being used. So ALM is basically the application lifecycle management. It actually decides that how the lifecycle of the management from the development to the maintenance it will look like, right? It is basically made up of three things: people, process, and the products. So how effectively you are managing your people or your resources while developing the whole software or whole application. Start from the planning and till the operation, right? How you effectively you are utilizing the pupils, utilizing the resources, because from the planning phases you need the resources who can interact with the clients to get the requirements. Then you need the development resources, then you need the testing team, then you need the deployment team, and then obviously the DevOps team to maintain the application or to provide the support once the application gets deployed to the production, right? So how effectively you are using the the pupil, how effectively you are managing the communication, the collaboration between the pupil, so that is also part of the ALM. How effectively you are automating the process, right? So that is also part of the ALM. And the products, obviously. So ALM is one of the major objective of the ALM is to how how effectively you can design an application in a more disciplined way, right? And how effectively you can automate the whole process using various tools available in the market. So there are a lot of ALM tools available in the market, and Azure DevOps is one of them, right? So if you can see in the picture, like the ALM may any application lifecycle management made up of or start from the planning phase, where you have to plan before you start doing the deployment, right? So and the second phase is the development phase. Then once you plan that how what application you are going to design and how it's going to look like, then you start doing the development. Once you develop that, then you go to the testing phase, where you test the application, you do the user acceptance testing. Once it is done, then you deploy it to the target environment on the production on the UAT environment, or once it is deployed, then you have to support that applications, right? So this is how the whole application lifecycle management looks like. Okay, so if I talk about especially in terms of the portal, so portal also have if you are designing the portal, then it is very necessary that you do some sort of planning as well, right? So if I talk about the PowerApps portal planning, like it also require like you do some requirement management, right? So in the requirement management phase, it's very important, like you're taking the requirement, you're understanding the requirement, whether it is really, you know, feasible to use the portals, right? Because nowadays we have a lot of power platform components and there are a lot of tools available in the market. So being a requirement gathering team, you need to understand whether we need to implement this particular requirement using portal or not, right? Environment planning, that is also important thing, like, you know, it depends on the projects, or it depends on the organizations as well, like how many number of environments you are adopting, right? So sometimes you take the development UAT in the production, and some organization take the development SIT productions and the UAT environments, right? So it depends, and it also depends the, you know, the size of your team as well. So environment planning also play a very crucial role before you start doing the deployment for the portals, right? You should understand the portal audience as well. So that is very important in terms of the licensing, especially, that you should understand that who is going to use your portal, that is your end customer, your partners, your vendors, or whether it's a internal Dynamics 365 users, right? So based on that, you have to very carefully decide or wisely decide that what sort of portal you have to use. So like, you also have to decide like what type of portal you have to use. So there are different templates available in the market, like starter portals, customer portals, partner portals, community portals. So you have to choose the portal very wisely, because once you install the portal, it's not possible to roll it back, right? You have to uninstall all the portal solutions from your environments, and you have to reinstall the new portal again. You cannot convert one portal into the another portal. So it's very important that, you know, yeah, you are very carefully decide at the requirement phase, like which type of portal you're going to use. Solution strategy, that is also very important at the time of portal development planning, like how you're going to manage the solution. Sometimes, you know, for my personal experience, if I do the portal development, then I create one solution to keep you know, all sort of CRM related development, and one solution I keep it for the portal related components, right? Because while doing the development in the portal, you create a lot of configurations or customization the dataverse as well. You create the tables, you create the the columns, you create the views. So obviously it can be, you know, it can be duplicate, or it can be contradict with the CRM development as well. So it's a very good practice that you are keeping a separate solution where you can keep your portal related components, so that you can segregate with the CRM development team, right? So it's all about the solution strategy for the portal development. Development team planning is also very important, so because if you are doing the portal development, then whether you are expert in the UI or UX designing, or whether you need someone else who can take care of the UI UX part or the responsiveness of the portal. So I'm talking about some complex portal designing, because in the most of the cases portal support the responsiveness as well. You don't need to put any extra effort to make it responsive. But as long as if you are designing a very complex website design that required the high customization on the portal, then definitely sometimes you need to have the UI UX separate team as well. So it's very important that before you start doing the development, you should plan your development team as well, whether you need the some designer or whether you need the testing team as well. Source code management, where you're going to store your code, and deployment planning, because we're gonna have a lot of ways to deploy the portals. I'm going to discuss about that in the upcoming slides. So you have to precisely choose and decide like what sort of tools or what sort of mechanism you're going to use to deploy the portal. Okay, so this is about the planning. So very important thing. I personally put more efforts on the planning phase rather on the development side, because it actually decide how your portal will look like, how your architecture will look like, right? So planning is one of the most important phase of ALM. Moving on to the next topic, like portal development. Okay, so portal development is basically made up of two things. The first is the customization, and the second is the configuration, right? So if you are planning to do the deployment, or if you're planning to do the development, then you should understand like portal development is basically made up of two things. Customization is I call it as a customization for whatever changes or new components you are creating in the dynamic 365 dataverse, right? So it is most obvious, like if you have to design the portal, you have to create some sort of tables, apart from the out of box tables. So all I think from my perspective, you should always try to use the default or out of box tables as much as possible. But sometimes, to meet the client requirement, to meet the business requirement, you have to create some sort of new components as well. So I put that part as part of the customization, where you have to create some new tables, columns, forms, views, the charts, dashboard, workflow. So whatever it is required to fulfill your requirement, right? So everything you do it in the Microsoft Dataverse. That is nothing to do with the portals. Okay. And the second part is the configuration. So for example, if you have to display the form on the portal, you have to create the basic form. If you have to display the list of records on the portal, then you have to create the table list. And if you have to configure the security, you have to create the web roles or the table permissions and all, right? So for these kind of configuration, you use the portal components or the Power Pages components. Okay. So this is basically the development of the portal looks like. You do the customization, you do the configuration. So customization you always do in the Microsoft Dataverse, and configuration you always do in the portal components. And portal components is also part of the Dataverse only, right? So this is the way how you do the development, and based on that you plan your deployment as well, because you have to deploy your customization different from the configuration, because portal customization deployment is totally different from the portal configuration deployment. All right. Okay. Now, what are the different development techniques are there? Okay, so development techniques are there, and these development techniques have been evolved during the period of time, because when we started doing development in the ADX Studio, we only had the option to do the customization in the portal management app only, right? But nowadays we have the PowerApps Portal Studio, where you can directly go and configure the configurations. You can create the forms and all. We have the portal management app that I think we have been using since the time the AD Studio was there. Nowadays we call it as a portal management app. Earlier we didn't had the model driven app, so we call it as a dynamic CRM. So we directly do the configuration or customization in the Microsoft Dynamics CRM. But nowadays we call it as a model as a portal management app. Okay, so these are the two different ways. And recently that Microsoft introduced a new way of development for the portal is the PowerApps CLI. Okay, I'm going to discuss about the CLI in more details in my upcoming slide, but just to remember, like PowerApps CLI is just a very very powerful thing that Microsoft has recently introduced, right? That basically used to automate your development and deployment process. Okay, so that is one of the key I would say the component that actually makes your ALM happen. All right. So this is the VS Code extension that Microsoft has introduced. So if you want to play around with the PowerApps CLI, then you have to install this extension in your VS Code, and you can just start using the PowerApps CLI. Okay, so this is the Power Platform VS Code extension that Microsoft recently introduced. Now, the most important thing that I am going to discuss it today, like, is the portal deployment. Okay, and as I told you, like me and Nicholas, we both have been working since the ADX Studio portal was there. So we are quite aware about how the deployment techniques were look like. So in the earlier version of the portal, if we talk about, we had the website copy tools available when the portal was not adopted by the Microsoft. It was known as a AD Studio portal. It was actually a standalone product that Microsoft recently acquired, right? So website copy tool is a tool that provided by the ADX Studio company, and that tool was basically used to to migrate your configuration, your website configuration or portal configuration from one environment to another environments. Okay, and then portal code mover. So this is something that is not developed by the Microsoft product team, but that is something that someone from the community has taken the initiative, and they created this tool, and that was also very helpful tool, because sometimes we had some of the issues in the out of box website copy tools, for example conditional deployments and all. But that portal code mover was was very helpful in that case. But also, the portal code mover was not also up to the mark. We had some sort of limitation in that as well. Configuration migration tool. So I think we have been using this tool for migrating the CRM related configurations usually. Okay, so when we have some master data available in our dev environment, if we have to migrate it to the target instance, then we use the configuration migration tool in the Dynamics. And I think 2-3 years back, Microsoft has not officially announced that you can use the configuration migration tool for the portal deployment, but I was using this configuration migration tool, to be very honest, to deploy the portal, because there was no actually the tool that Microsoft has officially announced that this you can use for the portal deployment. So I was using this configuration migration tool. And the recent one is the PowerApps CLI. This is one of the major enhancement Microsoft has recently done from the deployment perspective. Okay, so this is something that I'm going to discuss it today, and I'm going to showcase that I'm going to showcase that the tool that I have created using this PowerApps CLI. All right. All right, so same like the development, the deployment also looks like in the two ways, the customization deployment and the configuration deployment, right? Because the customization cannot be deployed using configuration migration tool, you can understand, because it is the part of your database customization, it is a part of your solution component, right? So obviously, if you have to migrate your customization from one environment to another environment, you have to use the old technique like solution deployment. All right. And for solution deployment, Microsoft has already provided a ALM tool, a CI/CD pipeline tool, that is Power Platform Build Tools. I think you are aware about that. And they have provided a lot of build tasks for you, so you can just use it and create your own CI/CD pipeline and start using it to automate your solution deployment. The second important thing is the configuration. So configuration, like whatever configuration you have made in the portal, like created web form or web list, or sorry, the entity list, or the web pages or the permissions or the web rows, or whatever configuration you have made. So there is no officially tool introduced by the Microsoft, but they have given the PowerApps CLI and given you the freedom that you can create your own extension, you can create your own tool to automate your deployment. Okay, so as of now there was no tool. I'm not sure right now if someone has already built any new tool, but till now there was no tool available in the market. So I just took the initiative. I just found, like, sometimes someone who is not a very pro writing or the commands in the Power Apps, sorry, they are not in very pro or advanced writing the commands in the command prompt or in the PowerShell. So I think it's better to create a tool so that they can just drag and drop the build task and can start using can start doing the deployments rather than putting the commands into command prompts manually. Okay, so that was the intention basically to create that tool. Now, if I talk about the PowerApps CLI now, okay, so because my tool is basically built using PowerApps CLI, so let me give you a very brief introduction about what is PowerApps CLI actually, because this is the component that Microsoft has recently introduced. So Power Platform CLI is basically a command line interface. It's a very single, it's very simple, and it's a single stop developer command line interface that actually empowers the developers, the business peoples, the app makers to create the code components, right? So I've been doing the dynamic CRM implementation since 4.0 version, so I know, like, what sort of restrictions we had in the dynamics in terms of the UI extensibility, right? But with the introduction of the PowerApps CLI, I think it actually allow the developers, not only the developers, but the independent service vendor, that we call it as a ISV, that they can create the code components independent from the dynamic CRM. So they don't need to log in into the CRM, they don't need to come to the CRM, they can independently develop their own component and can import it into the CRM, right? So this sort of feasibility that Microsoft has provided, this sort of capability that Microsoft has provided, and this can only be happened using PowerApps CLI. Okay, so Microsoft Power Apps CLI basically is basically the first step, I would say, or to design a comprehensive application lifecycle management. Okay, without the Power Apps CLI, it was very difficult. People used to write their own PowerShell script and the command line to create their own CI/CD pipelines and all. But I would say, like, it is one of the best or one of the first step toward a comprehensive application lifecycle management, where not only the developers but the ISV can also create, build, debug, and publish their extension and customization quickly and efficiently. Okay, and with this feature of this Power Apps CLI, Microsoft Power Apps portal also support the Power Apps CLI. So this Power Apps CLI is not only for the Power Platform components, it is basically for the portal deployment as well. Okay, so that you can easily create your own extension and you can migrate it to the target instance. All right. All right, now how you can do the portal deployment using Power Apps CLI. So this is the tool that I have created, and this tool basically use the Power Apps CLI. So if you don't want to use my tool, and if you have been doing the Power Apps portal deployment right now, then what sort of the commands or what sort of Power Apps CLI commands you are using right now? The first CLI command you use before start doing the deployment is Power Portal, the Nugget Packager installer, right? So you have to first install some prerequisites like npm. You have to run the npm commands and some other other sort of commands to install some sort of components or some sort of extension in your machine, right? Then only you can start using the Power Apps CLI. Okay, so then once you install that the necessary package on your machine, then you have to run the command to connect to the source instance, right? Because if you have to take or export the configuration from your source instance, that could be your development instance, then first you need to make the connection. So you need to again write the Power Apps CLI command to make the connection with your dev instance, right? Then you have to write a new command to export all the configuration from there. Okay, the fourth command, you have to create again a new connection to the destination environment. Okay, so you already take the export from the dev instance. Now you have to import it to the target instance. That could be your SIT, UAT, or production. So obviously you have to write a new command to make the connection with the destination organization as well, right? So another, you have to write the command to make the connection with the target instance. Then again a new command to import all the exported data or the configuration to the target instance. Okay, so these sort of commands you have to run in a sequence, and sometimes it may happens like you have to manually type the command, and due to some syntax issues or some sort of special characters issues, you end up facing a lot of issues, and you don't find the answers on the communities as well, that how we can sort out these problems, right? So this Power Apps portal build tools doesn't require to write the commands in the CMD or in the PowerShell. You just need to install this tool in your Azure DevOps organization. Okay, and it's a free tool available in the Azure DevOps extension marketplace. You just need to install it in your Azure DevOps organization, and you can just use only these three build tasks that I have created for you. The first task is the portal tool installer. So this portal tool installer is does nothing. It actually, as I told you, it actually install all the prerequisites, all the tools like the Node.js and the npm command, just to run the Power Apps CLI on the virtual machine. Okay, so it actually download the Node.js, npm, authenticate, download, and upload all the portal configuration. Export portal configuration is basically the task that basically use to take the export from your source instance, that could be your development instance, and the import portal configuration is basically used to import the configuration that you have exported it from the previous step to the target instance. Okay, so these three tasks you only need to use to automate your portal deployment. Okay, so the time is to demonstrate this tool to you, that how we can use it. And for the demonstration purpose, I'm going to show you this scenario, that I have created three environment in my trial environment. So the first environment is the portal deployment. Okay, so there are basically three environments. The first is the portal dev environment. The second is the SIT environment and the UAT environment. Okay, so dev environment is something where the developers are doing all the configurations and the customization. Okay, and once my development is done, I'm going to deploy the configuration to the SIT and the UAT environment. Okay, so my objective is not to deploy the same configuration whatever I'm doing on the dev to the UAT and the SIT. There are some sort of changes I want to do while doing the deployment. So when I do the deployment to the SIT, I want to enable the local authentication. But when I deploy it to the UAT environment, I don't want to enable the local authentication. That means no one can directly go to the portal and register themselves and create their new user ID and password. Okay, so I'm going to deploy my portal configuration to different environment and two different configuration as well. Okay, so that I'm going to demonstrate to you. All right, so first of all, let me show you like how you can find that extension in the market place. So you can just go to the Azure DevOps extension and you can just search it the tool like PowerApps portals build tools. Okay, so once you search it, you can get it on the first place, the PowerApps portal build tools, and this tools looks like this. Okay, and I've tried to write all sort of instruction to use it in your Azure DevOps environment. So all the explanation are given, like what is the purpose of the each individual task and all the steps to install it and how to utilize all these three tasks. Okay, and if you face any sort of difficulties, obviously you can reach out to me, and I have written a very good article on the same because at the time of creating this tool, maybe it might happen that it's this steps are not updated. So maybe I have just created a new blog post on my website as well. You can just find it on the arpitpowerguide.com. And here also I have just step by step with the screenshot demonstrated like how you can simply create this tool, use these three tasks. So there are basically three tasks available to utilize this tool installer, export portal configuration, and the import portal configuration. So this is the steps I have given. So let me show you like how I'm going to use it. So this is my Azure DevOps instance. Okay, and here I have created a new project. I'm not going to discuss about the basics of the Azure DevOps. I'm just assuming like you have the the basic knowledge of this Azure DevOps setup. So I've just created a new project here called Power Guide, and inside this Power Guide I've already set up the basic setup of the repository. So I'm using Git repo, and it's up to you like how you want to manage the repository based on your project structure or your organization policies. So just for the demonstration purpose, I've just created a two folder inside the actual repository. The first one is the Dynamics 365 solution and the second is the portal solution. All right, as I already told you, like the portal consists of two things. The first is the customization that you are doing in the Dynamics 365 components, and the second is the configuration that you are doing in the portal components, right? So for the Dynamics 365 components deployment, I think you already aware a tool, Power Platform Build Tools. So this is the tool that Microsoft has provided, so you can use it. Yeah, this one. I think I need to find the link of it, so let me find it here. Yeah, this one. So I think if you have been already deploying the Dynamics 365 components using CI/CD pipeline, you must have used this Power Platform Build Tools. Okay, so this is the tool that you can use it to deploy the Dynamics 365 components. regardless of whether you have created that component for the portal or for the dynamic 365 development, right? So you can anyways use this tool along with the tool that I have created. Okay, so for the dynamic 365 solution deployment, you can anyways use this tool, this Power Platform build tools. And for portal deployment, I have created my tool, so I'm going to show you that. So dynamic 365 solution, you can simply use this tool to store the the components. You can extract the components and can store it in the folder structure way. I'm not going to demonstrate that how you can use the Power Platform build tools. You can just have a look on the Microsoft Docs articles to understand the steps that how you can deploy or automate your dynamic 365 solution. I'm going to show you like how the portal deployment will look like. So for that, I have created a portal solution folder. Inside the portal solution folder, I have created two more subfolders. The first is portal deployment and the second is the portal source. Okay. In the portal source, what I'm going to do is I'm going to store the actual configuration. So for example, if today I have to deploy my configuration, my portal configuration from dev to UAT. Okay. So the whole configuration that I'm going to export or import to the target organization, I'm going to store it in the portal source folder. Okay, and the portal deployment folder is basically used to keep the configuration that is going to deploy. Okay, the portal source is basically used to only store the information. It is not going to use to deploy the configuration. Okay, reason being, I have created two separate folder. I could have created the one folder as well, but reason being why I have created two folder, because it might be the possibility that you don't want to deploy or migrate the whole configuration, right? Sometimes when you do the first portal deployment, you migrate the site settings as well, but sometimes you don't want to do the site setting deployments every time in every subsequent deployment, right? Because so let's say if I'm taking the example like you have configured the Azure AD B2C, right? And Azure AD B2C required the different site settings in the different environments. Your Azure AD B2C site setting will not be the same for dev, UAT in the production environment. So you don't want to deploy the site setting every time to override the the actual site setting in the target instance. So for these kind of the deployment where you don't want to deploy all the components, all the configuration, so for that purpose, I've just created a two folder. In the portal deployment, I will only keep those configuration that I'm going to deploy by removing the unnecessary configuration. And in the portal source, I'm going to keep the whole configuration, okay, the complete configuration whenever I'm doing the deployment. So this is how my folder structure look like in the repository. Now, if I go to my pipeline, that is one of the most important thing. So I have created two pipeline. One is CI pipeline, that is for taking the export from the dev instance, and the second is the CD pipeline, that is going to import the configuration to the target instance. Okay. So if you already use the Power Platform build tools, I think it's very easy for you to use this tool as well. Okay. So if I just click here and edit the pipeline, so there are very simple steps I have created here. The first is if you already install this tool in your Azure DevOps organization, you can anyway go to click on plus and can just type it portal. Okay, as soon as you type it portal, you will get it these three tasks available for you: export, import, and the portal tool installer. So for CI pipeline setup, you only need to use the portal tool installer and the portal configuration installer, export portal configuration installer. You don't need to use the import one because that is for the export, that is for the CD pipeline. Now in the portal tool installer, you don't need to do anything. I've already made everything available for you. I think so it will automatically install all the necessary packages, npm nugget packages in the background. So you don't need to uh, worried about it like what sort of package. So it automatically take the latest update from the Microsoft, latest nugget package from the Microsoft, and install it on the virtual machine in the background. Once it is installed, then definitely you have to take the export. Okay, so if you have to take the export, you need to provide some sort of basic configuration right here. So the first thing, you have to provide the dynamic 365 URL or the development environment URL where you are doing the Dynamics 365 development. Okay, sorry, the portal development. Website ID. Okay, so there could be the possibility that there could be a multiple websites as well. So right now this tool, this is one of the things that I want to highlight here, that if you have the multiple website, then you have to create a new pipeline. So right now in this tool, it is not the possibility and the provision to deploy for the multiple website. So you just need to provide the website ID here, and this is the configuration that is basically required for the OAuth authentication. Okay, so you need to provide the application ID, then client secret, tenant ID, and then you have to provide the the location where you want to export the data. So there are two locations I'm asking here: save export data all and save export data selected. Okay, so in the all, you see like choose folder path where you want to save the whole portal configuration, right? So in the source folder, I'm going to store the complete portal configuration, and in the selected one, I'm going to store only the selected one. Now if I want to export only selected one, what configuration I don't want to export, it actually depends on the exclude data. So here you can just put the file names in the comma separated form. So for example, if you don't want to take the export of the web files, site settings and all, so you can just put the name of all these components in the comma separated form. Okay, so once you mention all this file name here, it will not export it, and it will not be available in the portal deployment folder. Okay, and then I've just put a PowerShell command, and this is one of the basic PowerShell command that is basically used to commit the code. And this is the PowerShell command I'm basically using to exclude the table that I'm using here. Okay, so whatever table you are mentioning here, to exclude it from the deployment, then it basically the PowerShell command that actually delete all these files from the deployment folder. Okay, because you don't want to deploy these to the target environment. So it's up to you. If you want to deploy the whole configuration every time, you can just simply click it or disable this particular task. If you want to exclude it, then definitely you have to use this task, and you just enable it. Okay, so it's up to you that how you want to use this particular pipeline. And finally, the publish artifacts is something that once your portal exported the data, export the packages or the data file, then it actually publish the artifacts by taking the the zip file from the portal deployment folder, and it actually creates the artifact with the name portal data. All right, so these are the very basic steps you have to use it. Now how, once the export is done, how you can import it, right? So for that, I need to go to the release pipeline. In the release pipeline, if I edit it, it just have only two step: portal tool installer and the import portal configuration. So since in the demonstration I have told you, like, I'm going to deploy or migrate my configuration to SIT and UAT both, so I've just used the two duplicate steps. So for SIT, I've just provided a Dynamics 365 URL and the OAuth setting. So I think you must aware about this, how to do the app registration in the Azure Active Directory, so that you can make the connection from outside the CRM, right? Without having license in the dynamic CRM. So application user concepts, I think you are aware about that I'm assuming. So you need to register your app in order to make the connection. So you get the application ID from the app registration, you get the client secret, and this is the tenant ID. You have to use it, the Active Directory tenant ID. And this is the main thing, like, you have to select the artifacts where you exported your zip file. Okay, so you can just select that particular path from here. I think I've already linked that artifacts here, so it's there in the portal data, right? Okay, so this is the steps that I have done for deploying my configuration to the SIT, and the same step I'm doing for the UAT as well, except the URL. Okay, and the rest of the information will remain same. The very important thing about the deployment is the configuration, the deployment profile. So I think if you are aware about the Microsoft recent changes, they have introduced a feature called deployment profile. So the concept of deployment profile is, if you want to, deploy some different configuration to the different environment, okay, or it might be the possibility that your configuration of the development is different from the SIT, UAT, or the production or the target instance, then you use the concept of deployment profile. Okay, now what is the difference? What is the real-time example of it? So I think I've already shown you, like in the dev environment, my developer don't want to use the Azure AD login or Azure AD B2C login. They just wanted to develop the configuration and just test it, right? So I want to enable the local authentications here. Okay, but in my target instance like UAT, where the actual end user or the actual user is going to test the portal functionality, I don't want to enable the local authentication here, right? So I think if you have done the basic configuration of the portal, you must be aware about it, like this kind of settings, this kind of configuration you can manage using site settings. Okay, so I think we already so this is my dev instance here. Okay, so in the dev instance, so I have different instance available. So this is the one environment, Arpit environment, and this environment I'm actually going to take it as a dev instance. Okay, so this is going to be my dev environment. The second environment I'm going to use it as a UAT. That could be this one. Okay, I'm just opening that as one. Okay, all right, so this is my dev, this is the SIT, and the another environment I'm going to use it is this one, and this I am going to consider as a UAT. All right, so if you can see here, I have three different environment, this one, this one. So all the three have already a website, but the first one I'm going to use as a development environment. This is I'm going to use as a SIT, and this is I'm going to use as a UAT. Okay, so that means I have three different portals available for me. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I will take the export of all the configuration I have done from the dev instance and going to deploy it to the SIT and the UAT instance. Okay, and the change that I am going to do is the site setting. Okay, because for UAT deployment I want to disable this local authentication site setting, and for the SIT deployment I want to enable this local authentication site setting. So for this kind of changes in the deployment, I'm going to use the deployment profile. Okay, now how I can use the deployment profile? I will go to the repos. If I expand the portal solution, if you can if you can check here, I've already exported the portal configuration. So in order to create the deployment profile, first you need to export the portal configuration one time. Okay, that is the prerequisite. You have to take the export of the portal one time at least, and then you have to click here the main root folder of the portal and just create a new folder. So that is the deployment profile folder. You can get the instruction in the MS docs as well, that you have to create a new folder if you want to deploy the different configuration to the different environments. Okay, so under the deployment profile folder, I just created a two different YAML file, SIT and the UAT. Okay, so if you have some other environments as well, you can create some other profiles as well, and in this particular file you're going to keep the configuration that you want to override with the actual configuration. Okay, so for example on the UAT, I'm going to deploy the site setting, but this site setting will have this value false. Okay, so if I'm going to deploy my complete configuration from dev to UAT, this UAT configuration, this site setting value will be false. Okay, but if I want to deploy the same site setting in the SIT, I want to set this value to true. Okay, because I want to allow the SIT user to use the local authentication. So if I go to the SIT deployment, I just made this setting to true. Okay, if you have some other site setting, you can just use the same syntax or the same the way of writing. just below it. Okay, and it's not about the site setting for the any component. So sometimes, you know, if you have to make the changes in the content snippet or, you know, any other components, so you just keep it in the deployment.yaml file. Okay, now make sure like whatever the name of the file you have provided here. So for example, like for SIT deployment, the deployment profile name is SIT. Okay, and the for UAT deployment, the UAT deployment profile name is UAT. Okay, so in the release pipeline, I need to make sure that I'm going to use the same name. So if I go to edit here, so if I see here, I need to provide the deployment profile name here. So it's a mandatory requirement. So you need to provide the name of the profile that you have mentioned in the in your deployment profile folder. Okay. For UAT, I have just provided the profile name called UAT. So that means once the deployment will be done, the the deployment profile will override the changes for that specific, you know, the configuration that you have mentioned in the deployment profile. All right, so this is one of the basic configuration. I think I have just hard coded all the application ID, client secrets and everything, and I know like this is not the best practices, but from the demonstration purpose I just you know, put the value directly here. But what you can do is you can just create a pipeline variable over here and just make this value hidden or confidential, and you can just you know, utilize this variable here. Okay, so it's a best practice that you don't directly mention your application ID and client secret and all, because it's a confidential one, right? All right, so let me run this pipeline and we'll show you that how it looks like actually. Okay, so this is the portal CI pipeline. I'm click here and run it. Let me click here. Yeah. Also, as soon as my deployment is done, as soon as my my CI pipeline is done, I want to automatically trigger the CD pipeline so that I don't need to, you know, run my, you know, deployment manually again. So what I have done is in the release pipeline, I've already done this setting. Okay, so if you can see here in the edit, there is an option called trigger. Okay, so I have just enabled it, right? That means this actually means like create a release every time a new build is available. So as soon as my CI pipeline will create a build or will create an artifact, it will automatically take the configuration or take the artifacts from there, and they will automatically import it to the you know, the in the target instance. So whatever steps I have provided here. Okay, so let me go back to the CI pipeline. Let's see. Okay, so it's first installing all the tools. Okay, so all the Nugget package. So as you can see here, if you don't want to use my tool, it's not mandatory, obviously. So if you don't want to use my tool, definitely you have to run this command, pack install latest, right? So this is the command that you're gonna run on the PowerShell or in the CMD, or if you're using the VS Code, right? So this is the command you have to use it manually in order to install all the latest you know, Nugget package, npm, and whatever prerequisites is there. But in this case of tool, you don't need to run it manually. It will automatically done in the background. Now it is taking the export from the portal configuration. So meanwhile it's running. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask me.
All right. Yeah, I don't see any questions at the moment, and we're just kind of reaching the end of our, or a little bit past the end of our time here. So,
All right.
yeah, no, that's great. I know these tools, we in the last couple of years we've really gotten into these pipelines. You know, you kind of given the good history of all the different tools over the years that have been available to do something like this. This is always a very requested topic to talk about anything, you know, Power Pages, ALM. So thanks so much for being with us today, and thanks so much for creating this tool, another great tool for the community to help with the moving of these things between environments. I'm really excited to see where the CLI is going to go. To me, I'm still hoping that they allow us to do some kind of filtering down on the record so that it's not it doesn't have to
Yeah.
move the entire portal every time.
Yeah.
That's kind of the big thing for me, but really appreciate you taking the time to show us this today and for building the tool itself.
It's my pleasure, Nicholas. My pleasure. So I just wanted to tell one more thing, like if the audience or anyone is having any issues or any confusion using this tool, they can reach out to me anytime using my social media channels on my LinkedIn or my through blogs. I can help them out. So for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to change back to presenter here. I'm going to share my screen and we can just talk
Sure.
quickly about the next call will be August 18th. Looking for ideas for topics. If everyone has anything specific they want to share, please get in touch. Again, thanks to Jason and the team at MS Dynamics World. Jason, any parting notes before we end here?
No, just that we'll follow up with some contact information and resources in our upcoming email to everybody.
All right. Thanks everyone so much for being here today, and we'll see you in August.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot,
Have a nice
Arpit,
day.
and everybody for your attention. We will end there.